Hello everyone, welcome to another Facebook Live. Really glad to be here this morning. It is July and this is our launch of the So Confident project for July, the gardenia dress and blouse. So I thought I'd show you a little blouse version in a beautiful silk fabric that I think Betsy made this. Yeah. Love this little shirt. Has this interesting pleat that is just sewn for a couple of inches but not completely sewn to the top of the neckline, so the neckline is kind of open, has this little fluttery tuck at the neck. And then the dress version has a different shoulder line, a little bit longer, with an extended sleeve and folded armband, but all the rest of the details are absolutely the same. And this is one of the kits that we have in the Ramie fabric, which is very much like linen. When you wash it, it gets soft. It's really nice and comfy to wear. It has this sort of perfect rumpled look to it. So I'm loving this fabric. It's so bright and cheerful and reminds me of Kansas, you know, the fields of Kansas. Here we are, right here. So check out the workshop for July, either as a monthly subscriber or yearly subscriber. We're in the midst of it and having a great time with it. I just filmed the video last Friday, so that'll be out on July 23rd. And then, of course, our Q&A session a week after that. Well, you know, I always talk about my favorite fashion source, and that is the Wall Street Journal. And 2 weeks ago, I guess it's been 2 weeks, maybe just a week, can't remember. But on July, Saturday, Sunday issue of Wall Street Journal, in the style and fashion section, the caftan. And coincidentally, I got an email this morning from one of my favorite places in Kansas City called Asiatica. If you're ever in Kansas City, go by their store. It is a treat to go there. They specialize in garments made from kimono fabrics, and their collection of kimono fabrics, textiles, is the best in the world, and I am not exaggerating. Plus, it's just a great store to go to. They have some jewelry, some antique Asian artifacts, and it's a wonderful store to go to. But at any rate, they, this morning, advertised their summer caftans, very colorful. So caftan seems to be the ultimate summer garment, and they feature some caftans here that are anywhere from $89 to $750. But of course, you can make your own. And so it reminded me that we had made a caftan around here, and I thought I'd pull it out and show it to you. So this is the Siena shirt. And we're showing you this one because it shows how this is constructed, a little bit different construction. This is not at the shoulder line, it's set in just a little bit. So this is more in the area of a princess line, although it's not a princess shape. And then this sleeve is defined by this horizontal line. It has a collar and a stand and a band, and it's tapered, sort of a pegged shape to it. It has a yoke and a pleat in the back. So if you were to buy the Siena and Cortona pattern and make this, this is the shape that would come out. But we turned it into a caftan. And you can hardly recognize this, except that here's that princess seam, so to speak, and here's that horizontal sleeve seam. But we've lengthened it, still has the yoke and the pleat in the back, and I put a different neckline on it, a little squared off neckline, and did some hand embroidery work, a little bit of a cable stitch. I think that's the name of it, can't remember exactly. Some hand embroidery, a running stitch, a back stitch, and I'll call it a cable stitch because I can't think of what it's really called. And then used a fabric, kind of a cotton, somewhat lightweight, that has this pre-embroidered border on it. So this was a tutorial that we produced a while back, and it's called the Siena Caftan. And Erin models this in that tutorial, and we went to Wardmead Park here, which is gorgeous, flowering, greenery, shade, sun, beautiful setting. and she looks fantastic in this caftan. And she reminded me that there are pictures somewhere around here of her wearing this on her trip to Jamaica. So we don't just always model things and hang them on the rack. We actually wear them, and she took this on a trip, and I had to beg her to bring it back. So she brought it back so that we could show it today. So this is the Siena Caftan. I pulled out some fabrics that I thought would be really interesting for a caftan, and I thought I'd show you those right off the bat today. And Erin reminded me that we have this fabric, which I think is really unique. This is a woven border, machine embroidered, but it has this kind of relationship with the one that is made in the sample here. So this is a kind of a cotton, not kind of a cotton, it is cotton. And the texture of it is, I don't know, I can't describe the weave, but it almost looks like a waffle weave, except it's not super textured. But there is definitely a weave to the white part of this. And this border happens about every 36 inches or so. I'm sure that on our website we've told you that repeat. Maybe we say it on the tag. I should look. 30-inch repeat? Okay. So this is a woven border in beautiful colors of orange and yellow and pink and gray and yellow ochre. Since I'm into watercolor, I know those terms now. So this was the one that first came to mind that would be really fun caftan. But then I pulled out some other ones that are, a couple of them are new and several of them are very lightweight, somewhat like this garment. This is a brand new fabric to us. It's viscose, and the colors are they just remind me of something you would wear in Greece, in Mykonos, or on the beach, or around the house, lounging by your pool, if you have one of those. I can just kind of picture Elizabeth Taylor wearing this, you know, flowing in her beautiful home. Now, you've seen this fabric before. I cannot imagine why this is not gone, because this is one of my favorite fabrics. And if you haven't been able to visualize this for something else, now it looks like a caftan to me. And that just may be my next lounge piece. A robe, a caftan, whatever. This is viscose as well. This is a very lightweight, somewhat transparent cotton and silk. Beautiful hand to this, very smooth and beautiful, and a nice little plaid. And you know, if you're a little bit fearful of plaids, well, experiment with matching plaids on a caftan, because it's not really going to matter what you look like as a beach cover-up. This one, it has the same weight to it. This is also cotton and something, cotton and rayon. And you know, you just can't beat a really great black and white ikat pattern. Woven, excuse me, that's printed. Never mind, it's printed. But that is a traditional ikat pattern. And then this lovely blue with the salmon and yellow rayon. So those are my picks of the day for the caftan, and I hope you will enjoy making this. The instructions in the little tutorial that we have to go along with it show you how to, of course, alter the pattern, and also how to do this neckline, and also how to do the embroidery. So everything you need to know about how to make this garment from the Siena pattern is in that tutorial.
Turn the back, turn the back.
Yeah, there's the back. Okay. All right, so today is our second week of talking about fitting. And if you recall from last week, we are introducing this month the 2 volumes of fitting books. One is the Fashion Fitting Encyclopedia, which is a 42-page booklet that contains all of the fitting techniques that I have used over and over and over again in my workshops, at our So Kansas events, when I'm on the road, whatever. When it boils right down to it, to me, this is the meat of what you can do on your own, in your own studio, without help. Most other fitting techniques that you might encounter are either very, very personal or something that you're going to need some help with, somebody who's good at fitting and helping you and pinning and fussing and all of that. But these are things that you can accomplish on your own in your own sewing studio. So just last week, we introduced the accompanying workbook that goes with this. So every time there is a technique in here of how to do it, then there's a corresponding page in the workbook that gives you the instructions that pretty much are a repeat from here, and it references a page from the encyclopedia. Then you have a half-scale template that you can cut out, and you can actually do the steps, the processes, and put that template onto this page. So you have a record of what it looks like after it's altered, and you've done it yourself. I think there's a clearer understanding, different than just reading it, but actually doing it and not having to do it on your pattern yet. So you haven't ruined anything, but you have a record of how to do it. So today is talking about fitting the bust. And there are a lot of techniques in this book of how to fit the bust. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 techniques. But the one that's not used too often is a bust enlargement in knit fabrics, knit garments. And there are actually 2 methods of doing it, and I'm going to show you one today. But I thought I would review the materials that you need for your fitting and pattern alteration. And it starts off with paper, the medical exam paper. I buy this by the roll at the place where we rent crutches and wheelchairs and all of that. So you can buy this by the roll or by the case. You can also buy it on places like Amazon, and so check that out. But I like this. It is smooth on one side and gritty on the other side. I can see through it just enough, and I can cut it and tape it using the Scotch removable tape. This is by Scotch. It's removable, meaning that if I tape this paper, 2 pieces of this paper together, I can take this tape off and it will not shred. So this works on your pattern tissue paper. I'm crazy about this tape. So remember that it's the blue package and the blue core to the tape. That's what you're looking for. You can find it at your office supply houses. It's not that difficult to find. You may not find it at Walgreens, but you're going to find it at most office supply houses. And then I use a very particular red pencil that is a Prismacolor Call Erase Carmine Red. I use this because I can erase it. It has an eraser on the end. I've just about used this eraser up, so I've added another eraser. But I want to be able to mark on my tissue. I want to be able to erase the line. Sometimes I'm doing multiple alterations on the same pattern, and I don't want so many lines, so I want to get rid of some. Or if I've made a mistake, obviously I can get rid of it. So what I don't use are magic markers and ballpoint pens and things like that. So the red pencil, this came from my interior design days, actually, of working with architects. In the old days, well, not so much even in the old days, we redlined blueprints, blue lines, and this was the pencil of choice. So that's when I got onto that pencil. You want a straight edge, which I seem to have forgotten to bring up here, a straight edge ruler. I use a clear ruler that's 2 inches wide, 18 inches long, and has 1/8 inch grid marked on it. I talked about a clear hip curve. Now I've gotten so used to these clear tools, even though I own a set of the metal tools from college. I really like these. We get these from Japan. I like the flexibility of them. I like the fact that I can see where I am. I can see through it, see the lines. And this is meant for a hip curve, but I use this for so many other areas that it's not just for hips. Another curve that comes in a little bit handy is called a variform curve, and it has a different curve than the hip curve. It's a little more acute of a curve, not quite a French curve yet, but definitely different curves. So this is my number 1 long tool. This is my number 2 long tool. If you're going to buy one, you might want this. If you're adding to your inventory of tools, this is the next one to buy. And of course, can't live without my curve runner. I don't know. Where this has been all my life, I don't know. But we just discovered these a couple of years ago, and they're handmade by a woman, and we get them from her, and they're just fantastic. Curve runner, that's measuring along seam lines without having to stand a tape measure up on its edge and somewhat be inaccurate. This is very accurate. This will measure 12 inches in one round, and then of course you just continue on if it's longer than 12 inches and add the number of inches to 12 and you have your distance. So those are my tools. So let's talk about what I'm doing this on. So because we're going to talk about bust enlargement on knit garments, we thought about the Alex top. The Alex top is part of the Alex and Olive pattern. The other style that's included in that pattern is the olive. And in both cases, they are long sleeve in the pattern. But for this summer version, I simply shortened the sleeve and made an olive top out of a jersey knit. This is the Alex. And the Alex normally has a cowl neck, fairly tall cowl neck, somewhat of an open neckline. It has two seams that form this A shape down the front and a long sleeve. But you can see that it's one of these great designs that is fitted through the bust and the shoulders and then has lots of ease in the hip and can be made any length, short, long, could probably be a caftan-ish sort of thing, actually, now that I think about it. So decided to, actually it was Alex's, my daughter's idea, to make this as a summer shirt. So this is the shirt that Alex made, and she simply took this cowl pattern piece, which is doubled, so you know the pattern piece is about this tall, and just cut it down, and was able to use the same neckline profile and use what was a cowl piece as a 2 1/4 inch wide binding then. So in making this, the cowl is put on fairly 1-to-1 ratio on this garment, and as a neck binding, it's possible that taking into account the amount of stretch that's in your knit or jersey, you might want to cut this binding down, but you'll know that once you put it on. You know, we have a very signature ready-to-wear technique for putting a binding on, and we have it in several tutorials, and we have it in a tutorial that's available to you, very inexpensive tutorial today that talks about what you do to this pattern and gives you the full instructions on how to do the ready-to-wear binding, including the kind of ratio that you need to consider in the length of the binding, comparing it to the circumference of the neckline. And then it's simply a matter of deciding how long you want the sleeve. And in this case, this sleeve is 10 1/2 inches finished. There's a 3/4 inch hem, and so of course you need to think about adding the profile of that hem to match the rest of the sleeve. But I just think this makes a wonderful little summer top. When you look at this on the pattern, you think, well, I'm not going to wear that in the summer. You know, not many of us are wearing cowl necks in the summer. We want something a little more open. So yesterday I took one that was just like this, had the cowl, had long sleeves, whacked off the sleeves, took the cowl off, cut it down, put it on as a binding. I have a new summer top because I find I wasn't wearing this particularly in the other way. I don't know why, but anyway, so I have it on as well today. And it's a really, really comfortable top. I love things that have movement and swing, and I don't have to worry about what I'm going to have for lunch. So that is the Alex top for summer. Well, let's talk about how to do this bust adjustment for knits. Now, I told you that in the book there are 2 methods in this encyclopedia, and there are 2 methods in the workbook. So I used it on the Alex top. I actually combined these patterns used this pattern so that you would see what had to happen. But this applies to any knit top. It could be the ET, the urban t-shirt, the swing tee, doesn't matter. Any knit top. So in this case, because the Alex has this A insertion in the front, I went ahead and overlapped the two pattern pieces 1.25 inches so that that's equal to 2 5/8 seam allowances. So I have my total front. Then I identified my bust point. And the bust point is measured from the center of the shoulder to the bust point. And then you measure from bust point to bust point horizontally. Let's say it's 8 inches. Then you would come over half of that from the center front, in this case 4 inches. And that is where the bust point is. Now, you know, your undergarments that you're wearing make a big difference. When you're measuring yourself, you want to measure yourself in the kind of undergarment that you're going to have on when you wear the garment. Because this can change, as we know, up or down, side to side. All right, so the first slice of the pattern is through the bust point from side seam to center front, clear through. And then we I have to look at this a minute. Then we have a slice from the bust point down, clear through to the bottom of the pattern. And then we go up and then horizontal, perpendicular to the straight of grain, which is in this case the center front. We're making this slice about halfway between the top of the shoulder and the notch. So that's about right there. So this whole wedge gets cut out. This whole wedge gets cut out. So I'm going to move this wedge over. In this case, I moved it 1/2 inch. Now there's a chart in the encyclopedia that tells you about how much to spread patterns based on cup sizes. So I just arbitrarily today determined that I was going to need another inch in the bust, so I spread it 1/2 inch because obviously we're cutting 2 fronts, or a full front, and that would be a total of 1 inch. So this is spread 1/2 inch. And then this wedge I lowered 1 inch down. So everything's taped back together. This gets taped together there. So you can see that this is extra fabric that's going to be in the pattern. This will drop the front so that the front doesn't rise up. Then you have to reconnect some things. So you have a new side seam placement that now needs to come in and die to the original pattern. You know, by the time you get to the waist, it really depends on the profile of the pattern. This one is more extreme than many t-shirts, so there was a little more to fill in right there. And then, of course, you have some filling in to do up there. Now, this is likely to change the distance of your sleeve. So this needs to be remeasured and compared to your sleeve. Or if you are following the encyclopedia, and we're going to deal with sleeves either next week or the following week, I can't remember which, there's a method of tracing the original arm's eye and then comparing that to the new shape. So that's another way to go. But you know, you don't want a knit sleeve to be too much larger than the arm's eye. In wovens, we think that a sleeve can be 1 inch to 1.5 inches larger than the arm's eye. But in a knit, you want it to be 1 inch or less, because you don't want to have to ease a lot of knit. So just make sure that this is in a reasonable distance relating to your sleeve. So this has been redrawn, redrafted. This has been trued up. And then we had to come back and true up the front hem again. So since this was cut out on a small, went back to the small and just sort of emulated that original curve that was there. And because when lowering this offset things, this line had to be trued up as well. But you can see that you're getting quite a bit more fabric in the fitting of the bust in a knit. So this is method 1 in the book.
I'm going to come closer
Sure.
and just so people can see.
Yeah, there's the bust point. This was spread a ½ inch. This is 1 inch, lowered 1 inch. And then we had to true up the side seam and the sleeve seam. And then the hem, we had to emulate what was there before because we had dropped this 1 inch. And this line needed to be trued up as well. You can see there's an offset right here. So I stayed course. I kept the original width at the top neck, came down, and wherever it intersected that line is where it intersected that line. So that is fitting the bust in knits. You know, you don't necessarily want to have a dart in a knit if you don't have to. So this is a nice way to add fullness.
Do you want to answer questions about
We sure can.
this?
Yeah,
Before
let's do that.
we move on?
Yeah.
I just thought of that. Okay, so we can answer a few questions before we move on.
All right.
So if you plan to enlarge the bust, on what basis do you choose your size?
The starting size?
Yes.
Well, the starting size, I would still go with the bust measurement, but you're going to have to measure this, your pattern. You know, it depends. It depends on, there are a lot of people who need to increase the bust, but don't need a larger size necessarily in the hip or the shoulder. And some people will choose sort of that mid-point size, knowing that they're going to enlarge the bust and maybe reduce the shoulder width or something like that. So you still always choose a starting size by your full bust measurement. That's a standard. And then go from there.
If the arm's eye changes, do I have to make the shoulder adjustments after the bust adjustments?
Yes.
Does that eliminate the front inset on the Alex top?
No, this seam is still here. I've redrawn the seam. It's still there. I will now take this piece apart and use that piece as a separate piece and still have the inset.
How do you determine the drop? In your example, you lowered it 1 inch.
Yeah, the standard is 1 inch to 1.5. I think it depends on your cup size, how much you're needing to add to this. You know, I added essentially 1 inch here across, so I added 1 inch below. I think a lot of people know how much, or tend to know if their garments really do ride up a lot in the front. And this is a little bit of a guessing game, but if you have a larger bust or a larger cup size, this is the range. 1.5 inches is probably the most anybody's going to do on that.
Are your patterns graded to a B cup?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean,
We don't design our patterns around cup sizes. They're a style design. And as has been proven, when people come here for our sewing events, so many different shapes and sizes of people can fit into the same size with or without bust adjustments. It's sort of amazing. But most of our patterns are not ultra fitted.
Okay, we can move on and then we can go to other questions.
All right, so because of Alex's printed knit Alex top, I pulled out some beautiful print knits that I thought would make fantastic Alex tops or caftans. All right, so we'll start with this, which is somewhat of a patchwork. This reminds me of paisley ties that are all put together. I don't know why, but it's a wonderful combination of black and charcoal and white and my favorite color of blue, which is just that mid blue. Denim blue, I call it. Light chambray blue, that's a better word for it. And a little bit of burgundy as well. Super drapey, that's about the same weight as this. Oops. But nice and drapey, which is, I think, what you want in this garment. I actually made a garment over the weekend in a fairly heavy cotton. I made an Alex, and I didn't care for it, so I'm not showing it to you today. So I'm telling you that for two reasons. I'm telling you because my gut told me that it was the wrong fabric for that garment, but I made it anyway. Well, I was willing to discard it. It's not discarded in the trash, but it's not something that I'm going to wear. I didn't care for it. I should have stopped, but I was watching Wimbledon and I was engrossed in Djokovic's match, and so I wasn't really thinking clearly. And I think as a sewer, you have to be either willing to make something that's wrong or not watch Wimbledon or television while you're sewing so you can make good judgment during the process. But for every 5 things I make, 1 or 2 of them are just not really that satisfactory. And if, that's not for everyone, but for me it's true. I don't wear everything that I make. I love it, but for some reason don't put it on. And then there are those things that you tend to go back to in your closet over and over and over again, and it's not that much different than buying things either, I've noticed. Okay, enough of my pontificating. All right, this is another jersey knit, also a viscose. And we showed one of these a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, in a different colorway. We have about 3 colorways of this, but this geometric patchwork affair is fantastic. This looks to me like brush strokes, big square brushes in acrylics or washes or oils or whatever. This is a nice, reminded me very much of this in its looseness of floral design, 2 tones of blue, maybe even 3 tones, navy and a couple of other blues on a white background. But I love this loose painterly effect of the flowers. Now this one reminded me of what happened with this one. This fabric was quite mixed in terms of blank spaces and other parts of fabric that was busier. And I remember just cutting it out, not really worrying about what was going to be where. And I think it all turned out just fine, which is what I would do with this. I wouldn't try to think about this too much, but I love the way this is mixed in the concentration of colors and design. This one I'm particularly intrigued with. There was an artist in the 70s, I think it was Vasarely. Is that the name of it? I'll have to think about that. But this is a very op art looking pattern. And I'm pretty crazy about this. When you first look at this, you think it's red, but it really is a very red-orange and comes off maybe more orange than red. But I'm going to make a shirt out of this because I like the idea of wearing this with white pants, white jeans, white shorts, whatever. And to me, this is just like the perfect summer fabric. Very fresh and different. And I like geometry and things that are kind of mixed up like this. And this one is a gorgeous floral, black background. Actually, it's a blue background now that I look at it, with some black. The background is almost like an animal print. I hadn't noticed that before. Interesting. And these pops of crimson, pink, blue, and green. So all of them super drapey, lightweight, midweight, the perfect fabrics for the Alex top. Okay. So, we have any more questions?
Not Mike right now, but they did ask whether you can write on the tape.
What is what now?
The tape. If you could write on the Scotch tape.
If you can write on it? You mean like, oh, I think the answer is yes. Because when yes, because here's my tape and my red line goes right through it. And I think any sort of marker would. Yeah. Jean Stanley's laughing, I can tell. She loves it when I drop things.
Let's see. And do you, can you iron on the tape?
No, you want to avoid the iron on your tape. It will bubble it, and you'll be unhappy about that. I do have to be careful with that.
Mm-hmm. Iron it from the other side is usually what I do.
Yeah.
Always tape on one side.
Right.
I
think that's pretty standard with any kind of tape. Well, I don't know about masking tapes and that sort of thing, but I don't use those. I want to be able to see through my tape.
Okay, that makes sense, because there was somebody who mentioned they use painter's tape.
Yeah, I don't use painter's tape because I want to see the lines through the tape. Yeah.
Can you repeat the name of the store? I think Asiatica?
Asiatica. Asiatica. You should at least go to their website, asiatica.com, or it might be asiaticakc.com. And it's a feast for beauty. Their clothes, their accessories, their caftans, their throws. It's a beautiful, beautiful store.
Okay, we have a question about the gardenia. This might be something we have to get back to you on, but it says, are the finished measurements for the gardenia and top including the pleats and the tucks? There would be quite a difference in fit. So yes.
Yes, the finished measurements are after the tucks have been sewn.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yes.
Correct. Yes.
Finished as if you're wearing it finished.
Right.
Yes.
And granted, if you have the tie, I mean, that can
there's a little room to play.
But
on the tie part, but when you measured that part, did you measure it with it tied?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Kind of not too tight, just kind of a
about
nice.
Yeah.
And not too loose. Was that perfect? You know.
This is about the way, 3 or 4 inches is sort of standard. If you do it this much, I think it draws it up too much on one side and creates a different shape. Mm-hmm. So it's more of a tie detail. I have another dress made without the tie at all, and it works just fine. And then I had another dress that actually has more of a strap instead of a tie. Mm-hmm. So you can vary that detail a little bit.
With the border prints, how do you figure out yardage?
So, for instance, in this border print, if it's a 30-inch repeat, I'm probably going to figure out how long you're going to make a caftan, for example, and figure out where that repeat is going to land on you a couple of times, and then probably order 1 extra repeat. Whenever repeats are really big, I like to purchase 1 more repeat. The theory is that you're supposed to have a repeat for every pattern piece, major pattern piece that you have. So if you have a front and a back, you would buy 2 extra repeats. But something like this, no, I would do some planning and thought about, well, that's going to be at the bottom, and then 30 inches is going to be another one, and then I'm going to have one at the yoke, and how many borders do you want to plan? That's a different sort of tackling than this, which is maybe how many repeats. But we let a lot of things kind of fly around here, It's not that we don't like to match things, but for these big, sort of organic and architectural shapes of things, we just, as we found out during the So Confident when we were making the whistles, we just let the design speak for itself and didn't get too hung up about what piece was where. We just let it fly.
Okay. Do you think the caftan would be roomy enough to change your clothes inside the caftan? I like this question.
Well, that's interesting. That reminds me of a story, actually. Yeah, I think so. I mean, depends on your size and what size you've made and what you're changing into, I suppose. But yes, I think so. But it does remind me of a story. Years and years and years ago, Threads magazine had 3 people. I was one of them. We were the first people to do that design inspiration series thing where they sent us fabric and we were to make something, and we had a scenario, and our scenario was we were in the daytime in a business meeting in Hong Kong, and then we had to change our clothes in a cab for the cocktail party that night. And so the garments had to be able to be changed in a cab. Well, that's different than inside this, but it sort of reminded me of the same thing. And I'll never forget designing something that was, I could literally it's kind of like I was talking to my videographer last Friday who was shooting the video for So Confident, and his wife and he are costume designers for our Civic Theater here, and everything they make has Velcro in the back, so that if they have quick changes, then they just pull them off on the back and have a new garment. So anyway, none of that is relevant other than probably you could change your clothes on that. I wouldn't consider this a tent dress. Huge. So remember that.
Is there a chance to buy the fitting books as a PDF or as a download?
Not currently.
Can you show the Siena, I think maybe the original Siena again? Okay. We did have a question about the shipping on the workbook. I don't know if we want to address that, but it says they thought the cost of the shipping was high and are wondering if they'd be willing to ship the books via media mail.
That's above my pay grade. We will check into that. I don't know, but we can certainly check into it. Do we do that?
So the only thing I know about that is if you, on our website, if you were to choose media mail, but you haven't, other things within your order don't have that, or media, then we can't ship it that way. And also people would be able to choose that method no matter what they order. So we don't have the restrictions on, if you order the workbook, you get to choose this one method of shipping.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Our shipping rates are set by the weight, where it's being shipped, and the method of shipping.
Correct.
And of course you don't have any control over the weight, but you do have a choice of the method of shipping, from USPS to UPS to priority to not to first class to
right. And
UPS ground to, we're shipping a lot more UPS than we used to. And we're finding that in many cases it's equal or even less expensive at times.
Yeah, and if there is an issue with it, we do try and work to make sure that it is giving you the accurate, estimate on our website. So we do look into that, and we always make sure that it's correct.
Right.
So shipping things is not cheap, unfortunately.
Right.
So had some questions towards the end.
The thing that drives me crazy about shipping is it's just so random. We've been having trouble shipping to Canada. It takes forever. And yet I ordered a paintbrush the other day from Italy that came in 2 days, and I didn't even really pay extra to have that happen. So I don't get how I can get a paintbrush in 2 days from Italy and I can't get fabric to a customer in Canada in less than a month. It just drives us crazy.
Sorry. Can you repeat what you have on?
I have on the Alex top without the cowl and the sleeve shortened. And I have on jeans today, white jeans.
I'm adding buttons to my dress, the gardenia. Can you please remind us of the online stores for great buttons?
All right. online stores for buttons, Buttonology in New York, Benny's, is that the name of it, in Dallas?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not sure.
Check out Dill Buttons, and they probably have a list of stores where they're sold, or they may have an online store. It's not easy anymore. Most of the button sources that we have used for years are just gone. And so we're down to about one source, basically.
Would the gardenia blouse look good longer, more of a tunic length?
Oh, I think the gardenia would look good as a tunic. Look great as a tunic. It'd look great as a caftan.
True.
Oversized, not tied maybe.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if you just left all the details.
Yeah, just
out.
leave off the
Except for
pleats.
maybe the front.
Yeah, do this center front pleat, and no tucks, no ties, long, great robe.
Perfect.
In a beautiful silk or viscose or cotton. Yeah. Erin's going home right now to make one.
What is the...
See, this is why we do Facebook Live, because we get ideas from you.
Exactly. Or we stare at these beautiful fabrics and we want to create something.
Yeah, all of a sudden, like
gone.
I hung this up yesterday, and all of a sudden, that's my project tonight.
What is the... Do you know what the fabric is of your Alex top that you have on?
Oh, this fabric is, I think it's a cotton knit. It has some, but it has a polyester sheer burnout to it, and then it has a metallic thread through it. This was made a couple of years ago, and honestly, we don't have it anymore. And it doesn't have very much stretch. So I had to go up a size. I remember that.
The cream border print, do you know, you said it was cotton, but do you know what it's blended with?
No, I don't know what it's, well, to me, the base of this is cotton. And to me, when we say other cotton blend, this is what's not cotton. These threads are probably a mixture of little metallics, rayons, hard to say. But to me, the base of this is cotton. The ground is cotton, and this is the other.
Would you match the checks on the teal purple knit for the Alex insert?
Would I match the checks? No, I don't think so. I would choose, I would think about laying this out a little bit so that perhaps this section was primarily the A, and these sections kind of came into it. I think it could be cut out so that you could play with that a little bit and have a more concentrated something. I don't think there's any reason to match it. In fact, I think it would be nice if you didn't have to match it. Then it would really feature that insertion, which doesn't always happen in a lot of these fabrics.
The Curve Runner is sold out. Do you expect to have more?
Yes, we have another order coming in. It should be here this week. So hold on. We'll get them. You can go ahead and place your order, and we'll just fill it when they come in. We're having a hard time keeping up with this, the anticipated desire for this tool.
Can you repeat the name of that pencil?
The pencil is Prismacolor, Col, C-O-L, or Col, hyphen erase, 20045 carmine red with an eraser. Now, I buy this at our architectural supply store, But you should be able to get this at an art supply store, like Dick Blick or someone like that.
We had a question about the white linen. Any idea when that will be available? It is coming.
Yeah, our linens they had a snafu on FedEx, and they were just shipped yesterday. So we should have them by the end of the week. And then ship them out the end of the week or first of next week. Sorry about that. That's been a ridiculous situation with FedEx for us. I don't know why. But we've wrestled with the shipping for about a week. FedEx said they picked it up. The company said they didn't. Nobody could talk.
Then we went with UPS.
Yeah.
What is the black pen that you use in the hibiscus video that disappears with heat?
Oh, that's the Frixion. Frixion. Frixion pen. Love that pen. I order it by the box. That's how much I love them.
Okay, I believe that is it with the questions.
All right. Well, sales today. All of the fabrics that I've talked about are on sale today. The Alex and Olive pattern, the Siena and Cortona pattern are on sale. Both of those are printed patterns only, correct?
Sorry, what was the question?
She's distracted.
I was looking at all the other
so
questions that kept coming in.
The two patterns that are on sale are printed only. Is that correct? Alex and Olive
yes.
and Siena and
Yes,
Cortona.
correct.
No download patterns this week.
Correct.
All right. And then the workbook, we're keeping that on sale for another week at 25% off. We're not putting this on sale only because so many people have purchased it, and I have a thing about that. Buying something and then the day later it's on sale, I can't stand that. And then we have 2 tutorials. One called the Siena Caftan, which is making this from the Siena pattern. That's on sale. And then for $5 is the Make a Summary Alex top, where you get a little bit of instruction of what you're going to do at the neck and the sleeve, and then another 20 pages of how to do a ready-to-wear neckline. Now, if you purchased the Making a Ready-to-Wear Neckline tutorial a few weeks ago, you don't need this next one. It's pretty much the same. Very similar. All right.
I had one more question
Sure.
if you want to answer that. So they're asking about our interfacing, and do we ever put that on special, or is there another alternative to the Ultra Sheer?
We carry mostly the Japanese Ultra Sheer interfacing in white, nude, and black. We have not put it on sale. It's coming from Japan. The price is really expensive for us and to you, and we at this point cannot afford to reduce the price. We're already giving it to you at a little better price than we probably should be. The alternatives that we still have a little bit of 1 or 2 of the other ones that I like very much, that are also very sheer, fusible interfacings. They come out of Belgium, and they're wider and they're less expensive, and I like them. But once those are gone, I don't know that we're going to be reordering them, not because we don't like the interfacing, but because we don't like the process of getting it out of Belgium. And so we're going to stay with what we've had for 35 years, the Japanese product, and it'll be a rare moment when it's on sale. I don't think so, really. Not at this point. It just, our cost keeps going up and up and up. It almost doubled last year, and we didn't raise our price. So.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. We're still in the July series of fitting, and next week is fitting the, I'm not sure which, I think it's sleeves next week.
Sleeves and then pants?
Yes,
right?
And then pants the following week. So stay tuned for more fitting, and I'll see you next week.